they have to go through that own processing, like you mentioned. And I'm glad you gave your boys and your daughter the opportunity to do that. If you guys have to make a decision, ask questions, consult with other people, whatever that has to look like, and just trusting that we still get to be there. We can still be an anchor for them. God
Mm-hmm.
still has their hand on their lives. Now, I know that you navigated this journey as a family. You're married, you have 3 kiddos. I don't believe you wouldn't have had grandchildren at the time yet,
Nope.
but you had 3 kids and they were on the older side as well. So they remembered this. So would you mind sharing a bit about how you navigated it?
Sure. So yes, our daughter was already out of the home. She was in this is 5 years ago, so she was 23, college, out of the home, and she was not attending the church we were at the time. So she had kind of moved on from her own experiences, and she was out. And then our boys were still in high school, and they attended a school that was a partner to our church. So it was actually the building of our church was where my 2 boys were attending high school. So it was deeply complicated with, I had a senior graduating, and my younger son was a junior and had been at this same school all this time. So we were faced with this decision, and that's kind of a longer story. They ended up staying at the school because they really were led by different leaders at the time, and they were allowed to stay, which seemed better for them. However, my husband and I, very prayerfully and intentionally chose to walk this journey with our children very transparently. It would not have made any sense to them if we hadn't, because they had all been born there and raised there and they're baptized there. And, this was their volunteer community. This is where they went to summer camp. These are their friends. And for us to just pull out and just say something like, well, it's time for a change, or God's leading us on, or
Right.
anything that would have been just a trite oversimplification, we knew would have not helped them out at all. It would have potentially led to major division between us and our children. It would have caused them confusion in their faith. And so we made the decision to share with them every detail that we believed they could shoulder. And as high school boys and an adult woman, that was fairly all of it. We needed to explain it to them so that they would understand our heart before the Lord. We shared our own, you know, perspectives, actions, words. We shared we also wanted to give them permission to process it their own way. We didn't want to lead them into a position they had to take or force them to follow our footsteps, but we laid it all out in a way that would make it very clear for them. And we also wanted to model that this is a real Christian life. It isn't always easy, and that we do not follow human beings. We're not following people. We're not following a church. We're following Jesus. And this is the first time in our family's history that we're actually having to live that out. And so we wanted it to not confuse their faith in him, not confuse their trust in us, not confuse their walk forward. And it didn't make it easier for them. It was still, it's hard to even put words to what the loss was for our children, what it continues to be at times. But they're all 3, and I say this with just massive gratitude to the Lord, not to say that it's anything my husband and I can put a plaque on the wall for or anything, but all 3 of them are still pursuing the Lord, and in great relationship with us, and still, they're not so rattled by what we walked through that they don't know what's up and what's down. And that was really our prayer, is that they could walk through this completely shaking experience and know that what can't be shaken remains. And I do believe that worked out for them, and they've thanked us for it. So That was our journey.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. One primary conversation that happens with anyone who's going through this who has kiddos is we have to communicate to whatever degree we can for their age because they're
Yes,
noticing
yes,
stuff. And not just because yours were older at a young age, they're noticing that things are changing. They're
yeah,
noticing they're going somewhere new. Maybe the rules are different because beliefs are shifting. All kinds of stuff happen. They're not seeing the same people that they used to see. They maybe overhear bits of conversations or feel some tension or stress in the household. I mean, all of this, all of this, especially depending on the age, kiddos can internalize and start to make it like, especially when they're younger, when it's like everything's about them, the world revolves around them. And so, well, did I do something or did I, what's going on? And so, if
right,
we just add the clarity, if we just offer them that clarity again in a reasonable amount, simple terms, especially again, age dependent,
right.
it just frees them up of holding any of that themselves and knowing, okay, this isn't my fault. This isn't something I'm responsible for. And also, mom and dad have this. Like, we're still safe. We're okay. Like,
Hmm.
everything's going to be fine. They're navigating it. We're clued in to the degree to which, again, it's appropriate. And I'm so glad. And I know you say, like, it's because of God and you're not going to put a plaque on your wall. I'm so glad that you made choices to do it this way, though, because I think there is fruit to be seen from it. Now, people may still walk away, like adult kiddos, they may still decide. And I'm not talking about your boys. I'm saying for anyone else, where you're like, if anyone else is listening, they're like, gosh, I was more transparent. And now my kids are questioning God. Maybe they are identifying as atheists at this time or something like that. They have to go through that own processing, like you mentioned. And I'm glad you gave your boys and your daughter the opportunity to do that. If you guys have to make a decision, ask questions, consult with other people, whatever that has to look like, and just trusting that we still get to be there. We can still be an anchor for them. God
Hmm.
still has their hand on their lives. And knowing, okay, this can come full circle. Like they need to kind of make sense of the ugly that our adult brains were grappling to make sense of. That's hard enough for
Exactly.
us with fully developed brains.
Hmm. Yeah, and the other thing I just thought of too is that when we began, I mean, we took quite a while away from church altogether, and we needed to. We were just hemorrhaging. That's the only. It's such a yucky graphic way to describe it, but that's just how we felt. We were just gutted, and we took a while before we even decided we wanted to try to step foot in another church, and we did that as a family, where we went into different local churches to see how does this feel. Of course, my husband and I had a checklist of things we that were top on our priority list of like, this has to be here, this has to be here if we're going to go here. But we did that with them, so we were able to actually help them to identify what is actually important to look for in a church. It's not the quality of the worship band. My boys are musicians, and so it is kind of funny. We walked out of one time, and they were like, "Man, the bass was too loud on that." And I was like, "Well, that is something that is not going to be on our litmus test for a safe church." But I'm glad you identified that. But anyway, so we were able to walk the journey forward with them too, not just the journey through what had happened in the past, but even continuing to this day. I try to be very transparent with my kids because I don't want them to set up false expectations about what it looks like to follow Jesus. It doesn't always look like roses and rainbows and butterflies and epic dreams coming true and mountaintop experiences. Like, we were promised that this life would include the fellowship of his sufferings. And that is, I think, one of the sweetest fellowships that no one wants to be a part of. But I've wanted to walk transparently before them in how I fail and how I navigate pain, so that, because like you said, our children are experts at detecting hypocrisy. They know when we're saying something we don't really live. And I'd rather live out what it really looks like and have them choose based on that than me feeling like I need to make everything look prettier on the outside than it really is, because that doesn't really help them.
No, and I think something, I mean, they're not here for me to ask. I'd love to ask them this though. What they learned is okay for them to do. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
just that modeling for them of no, share what's going on and you don't have to stay stuck. And it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to have healthy boundaries for your safety, and to have a requirement that a place be generally healthy, that it not be toxic. Now, we're not talking perfect, but healthy. If we mess up, we say so and we seek reconciliation. I mean, all of these really good things.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel what you feel. We don't sin in our feelings, but it's good to feel them.
Hmm.
It's a reflection of God that we have them. And so all of these things, that you're speaking to, that they got to see you and your husband do. I have no doubt that it's going to continue to be very powerful in their lives as
I
they
hope
journey
so.
forward.